which brings us to topic number 2, which is a dream scenario by Pro Football Focus. And that dream scenario also includes Shedeur Sanders. And don't worry, I'm not going to go on a Shedeur Sanders rant again. I'm going to explain my dream scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's not me. It is what I truly believe the Steelers' perfect scenario is in their heads, in Omar Khan's head, in Art Rooney's head, in Mike Tomlin's head, in some of these players' heads. That's the dream scenario for the Steelers. Their dream scenario is Shedeur Sanders in the first round at 21, coming back in the third, and you get Deion Walker out of Kentucky. And I'll criticize this first before I dive into it, and I don't want to, you know what I mean? I understand where they're coming from, where Pro Football Focus is coming from with this one. Deion Walker is just as bad of a pick as Jalen Milroe at 21 or Jackson Dart at 7. Deion Walker is a guy that 2 months ago was considered a first-round talent and is no longer considered a first-round talent. Why? Because Deion Walker doesn't have that first-round edge. He doesn't have that oomph that you need as a first-round player. That's where Deion Walker lacks. And the Steelers aren't looking for that. Could you imagine a dream scenario that's laid out with a quarterback that comes with problems, that comes with issues, that comes with a dad with attitude? I'm not going to say attitude issues. That comes with the dad with character concerns, that brings a lot of noise, too much noise. And then you follow it up in the third round with a defensive tackle that is by no means ready to be a playmaker in the NFL. You've just filled 2 roles with players who might not work out. 2 of your last roles with giant question marks. That doesn't make any sense. My dream scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers is this. And this is, again, this is not, this is perfect for the Steelers. This is, if I was the Steelers general manager, and I think I could get inside the mind of the Steelers enough to say this is most likely what their dream scenario is this offseason. Round 1 is Kenneth Walker, but you don't get him at 21. You get to trade back. You're eligible to move maybe 4 or 5 spots, move backwards, acquire a second-round pick in the process, and grab Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Kenneth Grant is a guy that should go top 15 in this NFL draft, but just like Shedeur Sanders, people are talking about him falling. It doesn't make any sense to me. I have no idea if Kenneth Grant has something that I don't know is going on, and because of that, he's falling. But I look at Kenneth Grant as a dude who fits perfectly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, Mike Tomlin made it known with Keanu Benton that he could play versatile roles, and Kenneth Grant could play versatile roles, and it just fits so perfectly. Let Kenneth Grant be a nose tackle while Keanu plays the 3 tech. Let Kenneth Grant move over with Cam every once in a while and develop there, while Cam, who's 35 years old, gets to come off the field and stay rested. That's something that he hasn't been able to do in a while. Kenneth Grant is the perfect scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Perfect scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if in some dream, this is a dream scenario, the Steelers are able to move back and then get him later in the first round, massive. Absolutely massive. That is their dream first round pick. And I have a hard time thinking it's anything else. I do. They didn't go to Michigan's Pro Day, and I was still told they love Kenneth Grant. They love Kenneth Grant. They love Kenneth Grant. They love Will Johnson. They didn't even need to be there, and they loved both of them. Kenneth Grant is the Steelers' dream and continues to be the Steelers' top pick in my eyes. That makes the most sense, and probably who they're looking at as making the most sense at this point in time. Things could change, obviously, but where we stand right now, I just feel Kenneth Grant is exactly what they are looking for. They acquire a second-round pick from whoever. That second-round pick, that's when they get their quarterback. The Steelers want a quarterback. They want a quarterback in this draft. They don't want Mason Rudolph to be the guy who is going to compete with a quarterback next year. They just don't. Even if Mason is the guy this year, if Mason Rudolph is the quarterback in 2025, which is a possibility, I don't think I'm ready to sit here and say that it's not. It certainly is. And the Steelers will most likely go that direction if Aaron Rodgers says no, which, I mean, turns into the biggest laughingstock in the NFL. If the Steelers do not land Aaron Rodgers, they look like a laughingstock. Mason could be the guy this year, but the Steelers don't want him to be the guy that competes with somebody next year at 30 years old. That's not what they want. Instead, they want a rookie this year to come in here and do nothing, to be QB3 and to hang out, to beat Skylar Thompson in the roster, to develop, and then next year to be the guy that competes with somebody bigger. That is the dream scenario in round 2 for the Steelers. A Jalen Milroe, a Quinn Ewers, maybe a Will Howard. Any of those guys who the Steelers somehow land at, I don't know, 45 at the end of the second. Somewhere in that ballpark. 53, maybe. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers would love to happen and have felt that way the entire time. They've made it known that they want a quarterback, that they're interested in this year's quarterback class, but they're interested in Riley Leonard and Quinn Ewers and Will Howard and Jalen Milroe. They're not interested in the Cam Wards. They're showing minimal interest in Jackson Dart. I get they invited him in for a pre-draft visit, but they didn't go to his pro day. They didn't take him out to dinner. They did the same with Tyler Shuck. They've had other places to be, other quarterbacks to meet with. They think these guys are too big, that they're going to drop too far now, or they're going to go too high. Tyler Shuck could be a guy that's there late in the second round who slides, and maybe that's a name to watch. But Jalen Milroe's the dream. Jalen Milroe's been the dream. I mean, he's got upside through the roof. Worst case scenario, you make him a running back and you see if it works there. And I get it. That's an awful way to go about things and to justify this. But if the Steelers are looking for a quarterback who could develop into something significantly bigger than what they are right now, that's Jalen Milroe. And it will remain Jalen Milroe. If you could get him at the end of the second, massive. Massive. He's got 1 year to figure it out in a system and then see if he can compete with whoever next year. And obviously, whoever they draft next year has pole position, but you're just hoping that you get 2 studs. That's what the Steelers are looking for. 2 studs. For a year from now, they could compete in that stud or for that starting job. And then in round 3, you go get the guy who's going to be running next to Jaylen Warren. You go get a running back, hopefully like Quinshon Judkins, who I don't think is going to be there, but you never know. A guy like Caleb Johnson, A guy, Trey Henderson, there's no chance, but maybe. You're dreaming of it. Maybe an Ollie Gordon if everybody's off the board. But those early mid-round guys, that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping that a Judkins falls. You're hoping that a Caleb Johnson falls. And if we're going to go dream scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's how they're looking at this, is go get their starting defensive tackle in round 1. Take a flyer in round 2 on a quarterback. And then round 3, find the 1B to Jaylen Warren's 1A and have the next guy in a loaded running back class that is incredible. I mean, this year's running back class is better than we've seen in a long, long time. And you could get somebody deep. And that's what the Steelers' top 3 picks are. From there, you do a bunch of stuff. You go get a wide receiver. You probably go get a corner. You go get an offensive tackle. You go get an offensive guard, maybe. And you move on from there. Now, there are other names to watch. I think, you could look at offensive tackle in the first round as a sleeper. You could look at running back in the first and the second round as a sleeper, wide receiver as well. But I think the Pittsburgh Steelers' dream scenario this offseason is not Shedeur Sanders and Deion Walker. It's Kenneth Grant in a move back with a second-round pick where you land Jalen Milroe, and then you go running back, hopefully a Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson if they're still there in the third round.